The day the shadows stirred. The sun hovered low over Ironspire, casting long shadows across the settlement as the colony's early morning hum filled the air. Life on this far-flung world was slow, the rhythm of daily survival steady and predictable. Miners headed towards the ore fields, traders opened their stalls, and children scurried off to school. Or at least most of them did. Lina and Tarek weren't most children. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Lina whispered, her wide eyes glimmering with excitement as she glanced around. They stood by the edge of the colony, just beyond the safety zone where the last perimeter sensors blinked quietly. Tarek, older by 2 years and brimming with confidence, grinned as he adjusted his small pack. "Trust me, Lina, I've been watching the guards. They never patrol this side in the morning. We'll be back before anyone notices." The wilderness beyond Ironspire was a mystery, an untamed stretch of alien terrain full of strange sounds and fleeting shapes. Tarek had always wanted to explore it, and today was the day he would finally go beyond the perimeter. He tugged his sister's hand, and together they stepped into the wild. The world outside the colony walls were unlike anything the children had ever seen. The trees towered over them, their gnarled branches twisted in strange, almost unnatural ways, their bark shimmering in the dim light, changing color as the sun moved. Beneath their feet the ground was soft, covered in patches of glowing moss that seemed to pulse with life. Lina knelt down, brushing her fingers against the soft surface, and giggled as it responded to her touch. "Look," she called, pointing to a small cluster of crystal-like rocks that sparkled nearby. "It's like the ground is alive." Tarek, eyes wide with wonder, followed her gaze. "I told you it'd be amazing. They don't let us see anything out here. It's all about safety and rules." He knelt next to a pile of glowing ore shards, picking one up carefully. It was heavy, much denser than it looked, and he imagined how proud their parents would be when they brought it home. They spent what felt like hours marveling at the alien landscape. Twisted trees, strange animals darting through the underbrush, and distant calls echoing across the horizon. Lina laughed as she chased small, fluttering creatures through the underbrush, their shimmering wings vanishing just as she drew near. But as they wandered further from Ironspire, the light grew dimmer, and a strange stillness settled over the forest. Lina was the first to notice the eerie quiet. She stopped, her laughter fading as she glanced at her brother. "Tarek, do you feel that?" Tarek frowned, looking around. The once vibrant forest felt different now, darker, the air thick with an unseen tension. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. "We should probably head back," he muttered, suddenly feeling the weight of his decision to stray so far from home. But it was too late. A low growl broke the silence. Lina froze, her heart pounding as she scanned the shadows. From behind a cluster of rocks, a pair of glowing eyes emerged, fixed on the children with deadly intent. It was massive, its dark fur blending into the shadows as it stalked forward on powerful, silent limbs. Razor-sharp claws clicked against the stone as it moved, a predator closing in on its prey. "Run!" Tarek shouted, grabbing Lina's arm. They bolted, their feet pounding the mossy ground as the creature let out a bone-chilling snarl, giving chase. The children darted through the underbrush, hearts hammering in their chests. The beast was close, too close. Tarek could hear its heavy breathing, its claws tearing through the foliage behind them. Suddenly, the roar of an engine cut through the forest. A speeder shot out from the trees, skidding to stop in front of the children. Melik Aran, the grizzled leader of the Ironspire labor syndicate, was at the controls, his eyes hard as he surveyed the scene. Without a word, he yanked open the side door, motioning for the children to jump in. "Get in, now!" Lina and Tarek scrambled into the speeder just as the beast lunged. Melik fired a shot from his blaster, hitting the creature square in the chest. It stumbled back, wounded but not defeated. It threw its head back and let out a low, long, echoing howl. The forest answered. From the shadows, more creatures emerged. 3, maybe 4, all of them just as large and deadly as the first. They moved in a pack, their eyes glowing with hunger as they closed in on the speeder. "Hold on tight. Melek growled as he floored the accelerator. The speeder rocketed forward, tearing through the forest at breakneck speed. Behind them, the creatures gave chase, their powerful legs propelling them forward in long predatory strides. The trees blurred by in a haze of green and shadow, and the children clung to the seats as the speeder jolted over uneven ground. "They're catching up!" Lina cried, glancing back. One of the beasts was closing in, its jaws snapping just inches from the rear of the speeder. "We're too heavy," Melek said through gritted teeth. "Toss anything you don't need." Tarek's heart sunk as he looked at the pack of rare ore he had collected. It was worth a fortune, but he didn't have a choice. With trembling hands, he grabbed the pack and heaved it over the side. The speeder jolted forward with new speed, but the creatures weren't giving up. One of them leapt, slamming into the back of the speeder, claws scratching at the metal as it tried to climb aboard. Just when it seemed like the end was near, the ground shook. A massive shadow loomed overhead, and with a deafening crash, a giant mecha slammed into the ground behind the speeder. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground, knocking the creatures off their feet. Darian Voss, piloting his father's mech, stood tall, the machine's glowing plasma blades humming as he turned to face the beasts. With a swift, decisive strike, Darian swung one of the blades, scattering the creatures back into the shadows. The remaining beasts howled in frustration, retreating into the safety of the forest. The speeder skidded to a stop, and the children, shaky but alive, looked up at the towering mecha. Darian's voice crackled over the comms. "You two okay?" Lina nodded, her heart still racing. Melek stepped out of the speeder, his face grim but relieved. "Thanks for the backup," he muttered, looking up at Darian's mecha. "Perimeter sensors showed the kids leaving the safe zone," Darian replied. "My father sent me out to make sure they didn't get themselves killed." Melek turned to the children, his expression hard. "What were you thinking, wandering out there? You could have been killed. Next time you stay in the safe zones, got it?" Lina and Tarek nodded sheepishly, too shaken to argue. But as they prepared to head back to Ironspire, the ground rumbled again, this time much deeper, more ominous. The sky darkened, and a distant explosion echoed through the air. Melek's eyes narrowed. "That's not just the creatures," he said softly. Darian turned his mecha towards the horizon. "It's the Dominion." The children's eyes widened with fear as they realized what was happening. The peaceful world they had known was about to change forever. Without another word, they all rushed back towards Ironspire, the shadow of the Dominion's invasion looming over them.